Now when it comes to, hold up, say it with me.
Now when it comes to Drake.
Well, happy Friday, everybody, and if you are ready to see how a week of madness is ending with the worst news that could have ever come to the forefront for Drake, you know what to do. Leave a like, subscribe, and it's time to lock in, because right now, it smells like somebody's been baking cupcakes, and beyond the drama around leaks and the Iceman's White Man album possibly never coming out, Lawbury has done something that, as the so-called most streamed rapper ever, and who has been somebody who has been bragging about holding this title up, we have to question every single thing. And now after 3 single releases that have shown us who Drake really is, well, with the results and data, we have found out everything we need to know, and I am excited to say that Lawberries and Gentlegrams, we got them, and leave a like for that if you have not already. And beyond all the loose claims, speculation, and finger pointing, we officially 100% know that the Iceman is really the Botman, and that he has genuinely been botting streams and holding whatever is left in his career up on a fake foundation. And let's just get into this and the way we really do know about all of it, which now when we break it down, it really is like baseball or something, and Drake has hit strike 1 with Which One, and then strike 2 with Somebody Loves Me Part 2, and strike 3 and the most obvious signal that Drake is the Botman has come from him, Yeet, and Julia Wolf's little trash song Doghouse. And now, while at first, with this specific record, while Drake stans were trying to parade Yeet and Julia Wolf for gaining monthly listeners on Spotify, and they were saying the Drake effect is back, I mean, unless they were talking about how C-3PO, R2-D2, Wally, and Drake from the Sprite commercial are now fans of these guys, well then they were just clearly so wrong. Because really? For the Drake stans, we are just gonna get into how the Cupcake Karen has been botting streams, and not just for one song or for one day. But again, we have this whole picture of a recent history that is more than obvious, and to be honest, by the end of this video, we may be able to figure out how long Drake has actually been faking all of his numbers for. But before we can jump to that, we really have to look at the one thing that has ruined everything for Drake, and that has exposed the grift, which, well, has all come around a single rollout for a single miserable project that may never drop now in the Iceman. And well, the way everything is fallen apart is because no longer is Drake using label games and other tricks to stat pad his number ones to look bigger like he used to, but now, instead of trying to stat pad to the top, he is trying to stat pad missing the charts or barely making it onto any of them. And so let's just break this down, which with all of this, the first song we have to look into is Which One. And seemingly now what is interesting about these 3 songs and what we will come to find out is that every single song that Drake has put out is trying a different botting strategy to actually get success and to actually gain relevance. And for Which One, what we saw was the equivalent of a musical pump and dump, as with the streaming debut looking pretty solid, especially at the time it dropped, as that was a very competitive week where Chris Brown and Bryson Tiller dropped a huge song, Justin Bieber dropped an album, Clips dropped an album, and then Travis Scott dropped an album a few days later. I mean, again, I think we all do remember this. It looked like Drake was gonna have a top 10 debut on the Billboard Hot 100 for a while, and that's what the projections showed. But you know what? What we are now seeing in the full picture, and what we can now find out with all of this time passing, is that seemingly putting up these numbers with bot streams costed a lot, and I'm talking like millions of dollars a lot, and that's why nobody does it to this level without label backing. And so seemingly Drake could not be doing these numbers forever, and after the marketing and trick of Drake being on pace for a top 10 debut and Central C getting his first top 10 collab on the Billboard Hot 100 and all the other gimmicks that came with that did not work, which again, that was the plan, to try and create the illusion that Drake was popping and that he was back and that this record was big and it would create a bigger spectacle. Well, then the record fell flat and the games Drake tried to play did not catch on. And well, with this song, for everything else, it did show that the Drake hit is truly extinct and that he is washed up in every sense of the word. But it does get worse from here, and it really does get out of control with Iceman Episode 3, which is where Drake's tactics have been both more obvious to spot and also just more sad and desperate than ever. And before we can look at Doghouse, which revealed the absolute worst thing we we have ever seen. We need to look at the song he dropped right after episode 3 in none other than Somebody Loves Me Part 2, and now with this was a nasty, lame trick from the Cupcake, as it was an attempt on his end to try and regain any relevance he could and show that with his songs and releases in general, well, they are still market movers and they are making big debuts. And what the trick of dropping this specific song was is something that from the streaming platforms and the Billboard chart, which is called remix equivalency, which by definition, what this means is that if Billboard determines a remix is substantially similar to the original, a process called remix equivalency can occur, merging the streams of both versions to the benefit of the original track on charts like the Hot 100. And what this is based on is, well, if the lyrics are similar and the melody is similar, they pretty much just group them together as one track, and you can see the song right here. Which, isn't it funny for Drake? The song says it's new, but at the same time, it dropped 21 weeks ago, as you can clearly see on the charts. And I mean, with this, you see the game. And with Spotify then recognizing this song within their systems as something attached to the second biggest song from SSS for You, and one that has kinda had staying power, or at the very least has had the most staying power out of any Drake song by far other than Nokia. Well, the same things happened there, and the song already had a false start just from being in the databases and playlists as the original song was, and even with this happening, well, now while Drake's trick on the Billboard Hot 100 worked and it gave him the best positioning the song has had on the charts since it dropped, on Spotify it still did fail for the Cupcake, and it really did show that as a brand across the entire world, the demand for the Cupcake is truly down to levels that we could have never expected at a point, because literally, by remixing a song that has been his second most popular since the beef and trying to play all of these games to get it to overperform, he still could only make it to 126 on the global Spotify chart, and therefore this shows that even by trying to cheat the system, Drake can't do a single thing to get anywhere near the top. And now, after this test seemingly failed, and its debut showed that while it maybe gave Drake a number 27 spot on the Billboard Hot 100, it wasn't going to do anything to make this record a big song and a big anthem that he needed. This brings us to Doghouse, which before we can even see where it is gonna land on the charts, which I am sure is gonna be so bad, Drake has really tried to pull a fast one on literally everybody, but in a much different way here. Seemingly now with the way that Drake has decided to roll out this track, he decided to do something different. But that honestly is sadder than ever, which now what he did was to try and create and give the impression that the song was starting to pop and gain traction day by day after its release, and it really was on its way to becoming a genuine hit song. And pretty much to break this down further, which once again when we look at the streams you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, pretty much what Drake wanted to do was reverse engineer what he tried to do with Which One and actually convince people that a Drake comeback was going to happen once again, and pretty much try to use bot streams to show that more people were tuning into this record every day. But of course for Drake, as he got to a point where he only could fake so many streams and his pockets could only handle so much, the scheme he was running, because really that's what it was, failed so bad. And again, if we just track the performance of this song by numbers, which for context, it dropped on September 9th. Well, first off, the hype for Drake was so low and bad then that he could not even chart on the global Spotify 200 with a new single that is the third drop from a new album he's supposed to drop. And I mean, even with the streams it did on the US charts, you can see that, as I said, when the record came out, Drake's songs now where he is pandering to everybody and try to appeal to all of these different fan bases and make these huge club records, well, naturally, or whatever these numbers are showing, it did do worse numbers than Clips just trading bars back and forth on a hardcore rapping song like Ace Trumpets. And so seemingly with this record, after waiting a few days and not doing too much other than just letting it flop or putting a little bit of fake streams into it, we can see that out of nowhere, and I mean nowhere, the record jumped onto the global Spotify 200 after days of being out. It got a lot more streams than it did when it came out. And then after only a few days, this is the best part, the scheme wasn't even really thought through because the record bricked right off the global chart after getting on it. And so seeing this and seeing how the song just flatlined back down in the US, where you can see the numbers just reach right to where they were originally and then go even worse than the numbers that Drake has ever done. I mean, with all of this when you look around and see that in the 2 days the streams jumped, alongside the charts, not a single thing happened like Drake doing anything special to boost up the record, like dropping a music video or something along those lines, and nor did Yeet or Julia Wolf do anything either. And in addition to that, there was no jump in impressions or trends online across any of the major places that songs can go viral. And well, the only people that were hyping up these fake numbers were the Drake stans who finally thought that maybe their echo chamber was gonna get bigger, but of course it didn't, because again, the only other people in it were things that look like this. And so with this, once again, Lawbreeze and Gentlograms, we got him, and we can see that Drake and his sad team, wherever they are, really ever since What Did I Miss came and went, have not even been trying to hide the fact anymore that they are botting streams for these songs and trying to run different plays to get a strong charting hit for the optics of it, of course. That in theory, the whole idea of this is to get a hit and then domino Drake back into the decent graces of literally just anyone. And when you see that from all 3 of the last Drake single releases, this has been the reality of every single one. But as we have learned with the Young Thug leaked calls, botting streams is such an expensive and tolling thing in the industry that most rappers and artists, especially ones who are going rogue like we are seeing with Cupcake right here, don't ever even think about trying it to this level. And while the cost and toll of what all these fake streams can actually amount to, well, according to the cryptic things artists have told us and what people like academics have said, which, yeah, I mean, I know it's a limited sample size, but we gotta use it because it's all we have, but to filter and get these streams done the right way, especially for high-level artists, they're saying it can cost millions and millions of dollars. And I am sure for Drake, to fake yourself all the way to projecting a top 10 debut like we saw in Which One, or to boost Doghouse by like 2 million full streams for 2 full days consecutively, this had to cost him in the millions. And when you see how after doing all of that, the song still failed to make waves, the song did not go viral, and now the track is already free falling on the charts if it's still remaining on any of the charts already, well, for Drake, we have not just seen the supply and demand for him just be so skewed that for the first time in our lives, we have actually been able to clearly find out and detect what exactly has been faked and where he is trying so hard to look like he is big again and he is not. But now in the bigger picture, when you come to terms with all of this, I mean, this is just baffling to me. And what this whole situation does actually have me wondering is really, what is the extent of this throughout the 120 billion streams that Drake and his team and his stans have been bragging about that just has been faked and botted? And even when we go back to the idea of Drake being the former biggest industry darling in the music world when he was on the label's good side, how long do we think that they have been doing this to him for songs to be bigger than they ever were or moments to be more viral than they ever should? Because really, when you do just see Drake pumping up songs and them failing, and even just the general reception in the air and in the conversations within the culture when Drake drops now, you can just feel how much less weight it holds as compared to when a Kendrick Lamar drops, or a Tyler the Creator drops, or just when any big blockbuster album drops. And what I really do think now, knowing this and understanding this, is that really the low hype levels and just lack of demand, but still the insane numbers that we saw something like Slime You Out do, well, this had to be exactly what we are talking about here. Or even when we compare how Travis Scott's Utopia did way more streams when it dropped the first week, yet For All the Dogs had more first week sales in terms of streaming numbers. Again, I think this is just showing that there has been something so wrong within the Drake system for a very long time, and now we can fully prove it, and there is no longer a machine trying to help. And honestly, this whole week really should be a lesson for learning from him, because when we break it down, nothing is necessarily changed in terms of the quality of his music, or how he's acting, or how he's just trying to be a loser despite him getting more sad and desperate. But I mean, all that there really is that there's no longer a whole circus of gimmicks holding up and propping every single thing Drake does to spots that they should have never been in. And so with this for Drake, I do wonder, as we see how these streams go for Doghouse and how bad it actually ends up performing, what the next play is going to be, because genuinely, with everything around him just not working whatsoever, and with us now knowing that the fans hyping up Drake are not even real people, but they are just robots, you would think it's gotta be time to just admit the gig is up and quit, right? And I'm genuinely asking this and being serious, because if this is not the time, well then despite us literally catching the quote-unquote self-proclaimed biggest rapper ever faking and botting streams on his own accord, well then I guess I'll see you guys again very soon. And so now with all this said, let me know, what do you think about Drake being caught for botting streams and playing industry games in this absolute sad way that we are seeing here? Now, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this, and now if you want to support the channel, you can become a member today, and it really does help me out. It's a great way to show that you are a big fan of these videos, and you love the shift in hip-hop and the downfall of the biggest loser in it over the last decade going down. And well, it also just makes me happy, but also if you leave a like and subscribe, it is more support than I could ever ask for. And I just have to say thank you so much for checking out these videos and being a part of these discussions we are having. Now listen, in this week of mysteries and errors for Drake, one conversation I do think people should go back to and didn't get as much appreciation as I thought it should have, considering how big of an implication it will have when we all see how it really turns out, well, is what I just dropped talking about how Drake is going to cancel his Iceman album, and it is for a reason that is shaking up the entire industry, and it really is the ultimate payback to him in a way when you understand where it's coming from. And so just to see something that is really going to be the most important thing that ends up affecting Drake, rap, and the entire music industry as a whole, well, for the rest of 2025, you're not going to want to miss this one, so check out the suggested video.